Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round 3 here at the Hungaroring of the Pro Sprint Cup, brought to you by the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. We just saw the advert for the Coach Dave Academy pop up on your stream now. Joining me tonight in the commentary booth is Connie. How's it, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, all good. I'm really upset that I missed round 2 at Mazzano, obviously for family reasons. But yeah, very, very excited. It was like I had withdrawal symptoms over the past few weeks. I really enjoyed the first round of the Sprint Cup. We've seen just crazy action, close racing. And watching Mazzano back, we've seen much of the same. So yeah, very excited to see how these guys perform at the Hungaroring.
Yeah, it's a bit of a high drug fix, these Pro Sprint Cup races. I mean, we see some absolute insane driving from all of these competitors on the grid. A couple of names are missing tonight. They had to withdraw for various reasons. But the most interesting one is Pinko, unable to make it and second in the championship at the moment.
Yeah, that's going to be a big loss for Penko. I mean, of course, 2 races. You're not only missing 1, you're missing 2. But one of the guys who will be probably the happiest to hear that news is Niels van der Kokhout. He is 3rd in the championship, but he is level on points with Penko, so he could take a big chunk out of Penko. And of course, Penko, one of the 4 men, one of the favourites for this championship. So championship leader Bianchi won't be too disappointed that he's missing either.
Yeah, replacing Penko as a reserve driver as Amir. We were just on board with him, but now we're on board with Niels van der Kokhout and then obviously Christian Bianchi. Bianchi, the leader of the championship in the championship at the moment, but it is a Pro Sprint Cup. Anything could happen, but he has been fairly consistent throughout the championship, so I do expect him to continue in that vein. He was quickest in free practice, so we do expect him to be up there in the qualifying. Another driver that we've seen do very well is Kieran Prendergast, the lone Ferrari, I think he is, here at the Hungaroring. The Ferrari's generally okay here at the Hungaroring, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes in qualifying.
Yeah, of course, Kieran was the first winner of the Sprint Cup, round 1, race 1 at Zolder, so he's had a bit of a topsy-turvy season so far. Of course, he won the first race, 11th in race 2, 6th in the first race at Mazzano, and then 21st at the second race. So Kieran really having to string together a couple of consistent results here to stay in that championship hunt.
Yeah, another driver that we've seen up and down is Bosink in that white and pink liveried Porsche. Very striking. It's amazing what 2 stripes on a Porsche and a white Porsche can do for visual aid. But currently he crosses, he's set his last lap 144 dead in qualifying. We are 11 minutes to go in qualifying, so we're good 4 minutes in. So we've seen guys settle a couple of times, and one of them just said one is Chris Sevitt, the American, in his Aston Martin, is stuck it on provisional pole with one of the first few people to set a lap time, but 143.1, as we watch Owen Wenlock just make a massive error there in the final corner. That's not going to give him a very good lap over the start-finish line, and he's going to have to push again, but hopefully not getting in the way of 206 behind him there. That's Punzo in the Porsche, currently down in, I think it's 10th place.
On board now with the lone Lexus, John Colley. He is maybe doing a rain dance for one of the races. We know how good the Lexus is here, but he doesn't need it at the minute. 142.876. Current pole man by 0.3 of a second. Of course, only 11 people have completed a flying lap, and we still have some of the big hitters to go. But it'll be interesting to see how this Lexus performs around the Hungaroring. Of course, I'm sure some new viewers here to SEC in general, so I myself included, learning a lot about these cars, and a lot as we see one of the 3rd place in the championship, Niels van der Kokhout, having a little spin. Not too big of a deal in qualifying, still 10 minutes to go, but not what you want to be doing in a crucial qualifying session.
Yeah, I mean, there's 9 minutes left to go, and Niels is still yet to set a lap time, so that's going to play on his mind a bit. Don't want to get too antsy about that. Connall GTWR team, we saw a lot of the GTWR teams in the front at Mazzano, or a lot of the GTWR cars in the front of Mazzano. So here they are at the Hungaroring. Let's see how they go. He goes across the line and still stays 18th. But the man on pole at the moment, Amir Husini, he is the reserve driver for Penko. And unfortunately, he won't be scoring any points towards Penko's championship. So it doesn't help him much. But Amir currently our pole sitter with a 142.6.1 quicker than Macaulay. And a further look at that, Macaulay and Cruiser identical lap times.
Yeah, we're not surprised anymore. You can hear the lack of surprise tone in our voices because we're just so used to this with SimGrid races. I mean, I'm pretty sure at least 2 guys per qualifying session, every race that I've covered, have been dead level on times. But yeah, expect some close qualifying as these guys get dialed into the track and start getting qualifying times in. Track conditions are pretty much perfect. A little on the hot side in terms of track temperature. Track grip is optimum, so we should expect very, very fast times here.
Yeah, we're going to see this race taking place, I think, at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, and then race 2 will take place at 6 p.m. on the Sunday in the virtual world. Obviously, we're not going to wait until 6 p.m. this coming Sunday. It is definitely in the virtual world. We'll go into a following day. So there will be a change in track conditions for these drivers to contend with. Very strange to see Giorgio down in 22nd place. But, you know, he hasn't quite set a lap yet, so both his laps have been invalidated. But it'll be interesting to see now as he crosses the line. We're obviously on board with him because he is up on this lap. We wait for him to cross the line and see where it puts him on the grid. 5th place for Giorgio with a 143.1. And from 5th down to 8th, all within the same 10th. Sorry, 4th down to 8th. The lack of surprise in our voice is warranted, guys. This is something we are so used to. 14 cars in the same second. It's just you come to expect this from the SimGrid now.
Yeah, and it's not just qualifying; it really does translate to the race. As you see, Courtney pulling over to the side, he will probably go into the pit lane. On board now, a championship leader, Christian Bianchi. He is, I mean, when you've got a championship lead like this, of course it does play in your mind. Anyone who says it doesn't is a liar. It does play. It puts that added pressure on you. You know you have the target on your back. You know people are desperate to beat you, even if they're not involved in the championship hunt as such. They want those talking points. They're really desperate to get you specifically, let alone any of the other drivers around them. So a lot of pressure on Bianchi's shoulders. And now that he's established himself really as the championship leader, of course, 70-point lead over Penko and Niels van der Kock. He really is just the favourite, you have to say. There's no doubt about it. Bianchi is the favourite for these races.
It's a difficult circuit, this Hungaroring. I mean, you don't want to be mid-pack, and especially when it's this tight, and we do see a lot of mess into that first part of that. As I say that, he puts it on pole just to shut me up. He wants to get out of the front and get away. But Niels van der Kock about to set his first lap time. He goes across the line and only puts himself in 19th, which is very unusual for van der Kock. We're used to seeing him up in the front, so maybe just that spin playing on his mind a bit and making it difficult for him to settle down into a rhythm and get a lap done without any errors. Maybe just pushing too hard to make sure that lap gets done. Bosink, we're on board with him now. He hasn't set a lap, or he has, but it was only a 2-minute 19. So it'll be interesting to see where he puts himself. He's down in 24th. The lap actually didn't count the 2-minute 19 because it was disallowed. So it'll be interesting to see where Bosink puts himself on the grid.
Yeah, of course, as you said, Kyle, striking livery. I don't think he was charged too much by whoever. But I mean, 20th position and you're 1.8 off. I mean, 1.8 over lap. If you count 1.8 seconds on your hands for yours, it's not that much. It's not that much realistically, but significant when it puts you in P20 on the grid.
Yeah, look, if I qualified P20 at a SimGrid, especially in split 1, I'd be doing backflips and pouring myself a brandy and calling it a night. But it's to be top 20 in this field of drivers is absolutely phenomenal. And then we sit there and go, why is Niels van der Kock out so far down the grid? But this is a grid full of very, very quick sim races, and you can see that just by how close the times are. I mean, we touched on that. 2 seconds separating pretty much the entire grid. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking, you're in 15th and you're second off. It's ridiculous, but interesting to see the guys currently splitting the Porsche domination in this GT3 series. We don't quite see, if you're a regular of the sim grid. We don't quite see the domination in GT4, but certainly the Porsche does seem to be like, if you can get it to drive well and drive suited to your style, it does seem like the car to beat. So it'll be interesting to see. Of course, we've got Mercedes, Lexus, Aston Martin in the top 10, Ferrari in the top 10. So 4 or 5 different manufacturers there in the top 10. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys can cope with the Porsche dominators as they have been so far throughout this season.
Yeah, look, I mean, guys that are used to ACC, they'll know that the Porsche is very, very good and very quick if you can keep it in a straight line without it trying to kill. As we see that happen right there in front of me, just to establish my point with Emil there. The back end does try to swap around on you quite often in the Porsche, but setup is very crucial. I mean, Coach Dave Academy setup might help as well. They've just launched their BMW M4 setup today, so they're busy working on the GT4s as well. But a man who's doing quite well at the moment in a Mercedes-Benz to separate that Porsche dominance. We've got a Mercedes-Benz and a Lexus just getting involved with the Porsches there. Is Amir. We don't see the Mercedes-Benz too often in the Pro Sprint Cup. In fact, I think this is the only one on the grid. So to see it that far up is quite nice, I must say.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, we all love seeing multiple manufacturers, and with the Mercedes being the lone Mercedes on the grid, of course, these drivers will have not yet raced against a Mercedes in the Sprint Cup. I'm sure they'll have experience elsewhere in open lobby races as such, but just a different dynamic for these guys to play with. But one of the guys, of course, we see Joe McCauley in the Lexus, the lone Lexus, of course. Joe, not what we've seen throughout the season being a massive, how would you say, championship threat, although he did miss the second race at Misano, 6th place and 17th at Zolder. Of course, the first race was in mixed conditions, so interesting to see in the dry weather. Joe making a big step up in terms of qualifying as we hit 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, Van der Velde, also a driver that's been quite far up there throughout the season. But you're right in saying the Lexus has been there or thereabouts and then not quite there. But as I talk about Van der Velde, he puts himself third on the grid for the start of this first race here at Hungaroring. Great little qualifying there from Van der Velde in the Porsche. But you're right in saying the Lexus has been very up and down. But it just shows how different circuits affect different manufacturers, and of course drivers as well. Drivers are going to have their favorites, and as we talk about that, as Niels van der Kolk all the way down in 20th place, I expect him to jump up, but maybe a circuit that either doesn't suit the Aston or just doesn't suit him.
Yeah, very surprising. Of course, Van der Kolk will be desperate to make big strides and open that gap on Panko, the absent Panko. So this is not the way he wants to be starting. Of course, Bianchi, his next challenger, is of course Van der Kolk. So Bianchi will be rubbing his hands with a bit of glee as he is currently sitting on pole position. Van der Kolk now 20th and still not improving. So I don't know what's quite going on with Niels, but he's going to have to step up if he wants to make any sort of challenge to Bianchi as we get to the season finale.
Mia goes and puts himself on a pole position, and Severt moves himself up into fifth. So it's definitely not an Aston Martin problem for Van der Kolk, but pole position for Amir Husseini. We did get told by Michael, our always knowledgeable pit commentator, that he is very, very fast, and he is definitely proving that as we watch on board with Doricart taking some curb and some more. Pop up to the race direction, grab your £50 for cutting the grass there, mate. But definitely taking more, some curb and some grass as well there. But it'll be interesting to see where he puts himself. He's down in 19th place. So obviously a circuit that very much either suits the driver and the driver can handle it, or one that a driver struggles with. We've seen a lot of drivers that we're used to seeing up in the front, a little bit further down the grid, and some drivers that we're not used to seeing qualify high up there in 4th place. With qualifying coming to an end, those that are on a hot lap will have their final say at qualifying grid as Alexander Doricart heads over the line now. He puts himself up into 13th place, so a little bit of an improvement, but not quite what he wanted. Saying that, though, he is only a second off the pace.
Yeah, I mean, we do see currently that split between the first two and the rest of the field. It really is the two and the rest, because Van der Velde in 3rd to Knoller in 19th is less than a second. It's 9 tenths, so it's very close from 3rd to 19th. But even saying that, as we see Niels van der Korkel goes across the line, does not improve. So Michael's informed me he improves lap time not in place. So very, very disappointing qualifying for Van der Korkel. He'll have it all to do. As we see the winner of Zolder Race 1, Kieran Prendergast here in the lonesome Ferrari. He comes across the line. Will he be able to improve on his 8th position? He's a second behind. He does not improve. As we see everyone finishing their final laps. Minotti goes up to 8. He jumps Kieran Prendergast for that 8th position. And that seems to be it in terms of the front runners. Interesting to see now how this will play out. We can see the gaps. Hassini has improved to 42.1, so significant in this race. Bianchi 3/10 off. We're not used to seeing Bianchi that far off the pace, although 3/10 in the grand scheme of things, not all that big.
Look, we're also not used to seeing someone get all purple sectors either. I mean, in every single pro sprint cup we've had, I don't think I've seen a qualifying with all purple sectors. So a bit of dominance there from Amir. That's something we've gotten used to seeing a Mercedes doing, but not in ACC. So interesting to see that he's got that thing so dialed in and set up for himself. It does stand to reason that you stick to the car you're driving, get used to it, and get faster in it. He does make a good point of that, and upsetting the Porsches a bit with 2 Porsches behind him, and then a lone Lexus and Vantage behind them, and then again another set of 3 Porsches. So the Porsche dominance getting a little bit upset there in the front. It'll be interesting to see how the race pans out though, with 30 minutes in the first heat to go.
Yeah. Just getting informed, of course, by the ever knowledgeable Michael. If you are enjoying this action, as I'm sure you will, and you will enjoy this race, no doubt about it. If you're enjoying the game for everything you've seen, of course, it's, for my money, the best sim going out there for car racing. I absolutely love this game. 40% off. Where is that, Michael? Humble Bundle, 40% off a set of course competition. If you want to take part in this, of course we have multiple splits in the sim grid for all sort of capabilities and pace and speed. So if you want to get involved in the Sprint Cup, Endurance Cup, or any races that sim grid are hosting, do get involved. It is a great series. I for one has seen multiple splits here, and the racing is tight throughout each split. So if you want to get involved, get SEC and log on to the sim grid.
We talk about the game and everything that goes into it. I've got to be honest. In terms of detail in any sim racing game I've partaken in or enjoyed, the level of detail, if you just have a look at the interior of this car, is absolutely phenomenal. From the windscreen wipers buffering at a certain speed to the driver playing with settings there on the dash that we just saw now. Phenomenal detail throughout all these cars. And in terms of immersion, it is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, even just commentating on it, I feel like I'm part of a real race. I wish race directors were as good as our Michael Hamilton.
Yeah, we don't get that often in real broadcasts. Lucky enough, there's Michael is knowledgeable enough not to cut away from battles. We focus on the battles that are going on. I've seen many complaints about cutting to engineers or pit crew or the fans during hard battles in real life racing. We don't have that issue here at the sim grid, so very excited to see how this race unfolds. Hassini, the new boy, fresh blood into this series in the Mercedes on pole, fighting the established guy, the championship leader Christian Bianchi, into T1.
Yeah, Hassini showing everybody up a bit. Let me just join the series 3 rounds in and stick it on pole, guys. No worries, no pressure. It's all good. I got this. So I don't think Bianchi and Van der Velde and the likes of Kreuzer and Triquet, the guys that have been part of this from day one, are a little bit. I think they're a little bit blown away by this Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes-Benz that's just arrived here and shown them up. Joined their party and gate crashed it a bit. Took the hottest chick and went home. So I think they're a little bit bleak at the moment, but it'll be interesting to see what the racing pans out to be. We always say, no, they might take it easy in the beginning and work themselves into a rhythm. We're always proved wrong. So Amir leading them through for the first lap, the warm-up lap, getting tires up to temp, brakes up to temp, and we'll go into the madhouse very, very shortly.
Yeah, and striking livery on Hassini's car. It really is a mad Panda livery. Hopefully it doesn't go too mad in the first lap, but conditions pretty much perfect for this race. 2 p.m. in game time, so right on the cusp of where you want to be racing and what time you want to be racing at. Yeah, so these guys will be setting some fast times, and they'll know the guys around them will be, oh, as we see a dive up the inside. It's not quite the race yet, guys. Settle yourselves down. But Lucas Cruiser, a guy you have sung the praises of, Kyle, especially through qualifying. We've seen him, whether it be Sprint Cup, Endurance Cup, be very, very fast. 6th there. He might be one to watch out for as this race progresses.
Yeah, he's very much a one-lap wonder. He always sticks it on pole in the last bit of the lap, but unfortunately the ironing board wing on the back of that Porsche didn't help him much, and he couldn't quite get himself up there. But as we head through the last corner, they start bunching it up now and heading into their boxes to get the start off the line. They are heading towards the start finish line now. It is a red at the moment, waiting for the lights to go green and racing to start. It is a long run down to turn 1. We're waiting for that green light. It's almost up, but there it is, green light, and we are racing. The AMG quick off the line, but not quick enough. It looks like that Porsche is going to make it all the way around the outside into turn 1. Joe McCauley looking racy, going around the outside into the turn 1 to get past that of 3rd place. He's unable to do so, and it looks like Lucas Kreuzer will move himself up from 6th place into 4th. So Connall spot on there for the man to watch.
Yeah, no incidents there through T1. Hopefully everyone keeps it nice and together. Of course, we see how tight from this helicopter cam that the track actually is, as we see a lot of bumping, a lot of boring. Cornacchia and Kieran Prendergast getting involved in a bit of bumping there, but everything is okay. Everyone looks to have been through, no problemo. Yeah, of course, we've seen the man.
Big send in the back there. Big send there. That was Tim Tracay getting turned around. I'm not sure who hit him. It was quite a bright blue and green Porsche, but it was a big send down the inside, and it ended in tears for at least 3 competitors there. As we look back to Niels van der Kookhout, he's moved himself up into 70th place as another big send from behind. He gets tagged from the rear and turned around in the middle of the chicane. That's going to be an absolute mess. Well, clearly not. I was taken out. So Handler just mistaking the brake pedal for the clutch pedal there and running straight into the back of him. And unfortunately, having an absolute shocker is Niels van der Kookhout. 3rd in our championship, if I'm not mistaken, huh?
Yeah, Van der Kookhout, he needed to get those points on Penko. Penko is one of the 4 men that we've seen from Zolder. Niels trying to extend that gap on Penko. Of course, they're level on points, currently 2nd and 3rd. Bianchi will be rubbing his hands with glee. 2nd place in the championship isn't even here. And Niels van der Kookhout, 3rd in the championship, is 21st.
Bit of info there from Michael Hamlet, as always, the all-knowing Wizard of Oz, Michael Hamlet, giving us some information there. If Niels van der Kookhout finishes in last place in this race, which he isn't at the moment, he isn't currently last, he's down in 21st, so he's only lost 1 place from his qualifying position, he will still score 9 points on Penko. So rage quitting and bailing out of the race isn't going to help him much. He needs to stay in the race even if he finishes last and gain those 9 points. On board now with Kieran Prendergast, he is down, I think, in 4th or 5th place in our championship after a stellar round 1 in that Ferrari, and he isn't having a bad show of things now in 8th place. He's being absolutely swamped by 3 Porsches there at the moment, so he's under a bit of pressure. But just in front of him, Sevet there in the Aston Martin, the American, doing very, very well in this event here at the Hungaroring.
Yes, Everett has had a bit of an up and down season so far as he gets a little bit sideways. We've seen Chris Saver use all of the grass and then some at Zolder, as he had brake failure, if I'm not mistaken, throughout the race. But 15th and a 3rd at Zolder, 21st and a 13th, so he was on the podium at Zolder. Had a bit of a nightmare at Misano, really trying to get his season back on track.
Yeah, as Chaz would say, if anybody could save it, serve it can. So Servant doing a great job to save the rear end on the Aston Martin there. But just behind there in 9th place, Giorgio Connaccia. We saw him very, very quick in Misano. He's moved himself up to 8th all of a sudden on my screen. No, ninth place. Sorry, it's just a bit of a glitch in the matrix for me. I need to keep looking at the left, not the right. But there's a bit of a dice happening behind him. It's Minotti and Doricott getting a bit close for comfort there through the last part of that lap. Which now it looks like Van der Velde making a mistake and under pressure from Kreuzer into turn 1. Whoa, the Lexus laid on the brakes there. What?
Yeah, that was very close. Macaulay did well to actually avoid contact there with Cruiser. I'm sure Cruiser had the fright of his life. I hope he doesn't have good peripheral vision in that case. He would have seen Alexis coming very close to the back end of his car. But Cruiser, as you said, Kyle, putting pressure on Van der Velde to the podium, and Cruiser isn't out of this championship yet. A bad race for Bianchi. We're seeing a bad race for Van der Cocktail. Lucas Cruiser could be finding his way back up into the championship. We've seen how quick he is. He really needs to make these positions count, having missed Mazzano.
Yeah, good on him for staying in it. He's only got 95 points at the moment. I think it is down in 18th place. So good on him to stay in the championship and stay on it. But Joe Macaulay having a bit of a, I don't want to call it brain failure, maybe a bit of brake failure there into turn 1, and costing himself quite a bit of time and putting himself in the clutches of Beavis. But he's able to get a bit of breathing room through this twisty part of the circuit. The Lexus is very good through here at Hungaroring. I've had to race a couple of them in our local lobbies, so they are quite quick through this section in terms of on the Porsche. But the Porsche through this last part can get onto the back of him and maybe have a look into turn 1.
Yeah, as we see the leader, 1.8 now, really stretching that gap. Bianchi has opened up a second lead over Van der Velde, so it really does look as though, as we've seen in qualifying, we've seen the pattern forming almost in qualifying, as we see Seaver again using a lot of the track. He will get a track limits warning for that, but we've seen that the top 2 in qualifying were just that wee bit ahead of the rest of the field, and then we've seen 3rd to 19th covered by less than a second, and we're seeing that look down the gaps there down your left hand side, less than a second for pretty much all the gaps. But as Michael is pointing out, Bianchi, he really doesn't need to. Hassini in front of him isn't too big of a deal. Hassini, reserve driver, not scoring points for himself for Penko, so Bianchi will actually get the points for the win. So Bianchi can just follow Hassini home. Hoping that Hassini stretches that lead from himself, Bianchi, to Van der Velde, and then essentially points-wise, it's a win for Bianchi.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane to see in a sim grid race. 2.4 seconds is the lead already after only, I think, 7 minutes of racing. So to see that gap grow that quickly is unheard of in especially a split 1 of the sim grid. So Amir doing a fantastic job, and he's just getting quicker and quicker and building that gap. But Bianchi doesn't need to chase it at all. He can just comfortably a second ahead of Van der Velde. Look, a second isn't much of a comfortable gap. It's now 1.8 though. So Van der Velde coming under big pressure from a Kreuzer behind him. And that Lexus getting closer and closer after that mistake he made into turn 1. So it looks to be that Van der Velde is actually holding up this group as we look at Kreuzer get right underneath him. I think the split on that Porsche was just underneath the back of the Porsche in front of him.
You know it's close when from this camera you can see Lucas Cruiser's number between the rear of the car and the rear wing. Very, very close there. But Cruiser, he knew what he was doing, but he's under attack. Van der Velde's under attack, Cruiser's under attack, Macaulay's under attack. They're all under attack. They're defensive and offensive at the same time. It really is a difficult situation to be in, as we see again Macaulay running wide at T1. He hooks it back a little better there, but that'll be something that Beavis might actually be able to capitalise on next time we get into T1.
Yeah, it looks like that Lexus just a little bit late on the brakes than the Porsche, and he just kind of misjudges it every time into turn 1. Maybe a full send into turn 1 might be coming soon on Cruiser, but definitely holding up the pack here as Van der Velde. I mean, Cruiser was so close. If he didn't have a tinted visor, we could see the whites of his eyes as they headed into that corner there. Running a little bit wide out of the left-hander. That is quite easy to do in the Porsche. The Porsche doesn't like that inside curve very much, and especially through the chicane here. We know Porsches and curves. They're not big fans of them. So it is very difficult to get these Porsches through, as we see the back end of Van der Velde flip out just to emphasize my point there, heading now through the left and right hander. The Kreuzer definitely does have the pace on Van der Velde. We go back to Moller, and he is falling back through the field quite quickly. He's down into 16th place, and he is definitely holding up this pack. Tim Triquet behind him. Triquet trying to make his way back up to the field after that turn 1 incident where he was facing the wrong direction, exiting. I think it was turn 1 or turn 2, exiting the. the Wizard of Oz telling me turn 4 on lap 1. So turn 4 on lap 1. Sorry, I was so far off on that one. But Connall, the McLaren there, not having a good time at the moment.
No, not for the last time. We've seen Noller stick to that McLaren both in the Sprint Cup and the Endurance Cup. He's driving the McLaren in both series, so he is well dialed into that car. But we know the quality of Noller. He is a podium man in a couple of GP4 launch race nices. But Macaulay thinks better of it again. Cruiser's right up the back wheels of Van der Velde. Macaulay just thinking better of it. That was a bit better T1 there, but Macaulay does seem to have a bit of pace in some sections where the Porsche doesn't. He will be looking to capitalise on maybe a mistake there, but Cruiser maybe trying a wider line, trying to V the corner, square the corner off and get the run on Van der Velde. But as you've seen there, Macaulay running wide there play a big factor into this race possibly at the end due to track limits, strict track limits here at the Hungaroring. If you've never been here in SEC, if you have been here, you will know exactly what I am talking about. Very strict track limits. But you see the guys here take a big liberty here in the first part of that chicane, and then the second part a lot more harsher. They won't use as much curb there through that chicane. Cruiser now flashing his lights at Van der Velde as if he's a back marker, but sorry mate, you're gonna have to get through.
Yeah, you can definitely see that Lexus is a very good through the mid corner of the apex, but unfortunately just doesn't have the acceleration of the Porsche. He's gonna have to do the full send into turn 1, or even here he has to think about it, but it comes back, but he comes back very late, so he will be affecting his exit and will now be under pressure. He has to almost go defensive into the final corner. So Kreuzer definitely getting held up by the Porsche in front of him, but he needs to get that move done. He's unable to do so and is now falling back into the clutch of that Lexus. But Joe Macaulay's having to be offensive and defensive all at the same time. But the best defense is always offense, so he needs to get past Kreuzer as soon as possible. But the frustration must be growing through all these drivers. If we have a look at down further back, it's a freight train of cars waiting to get past Van der Velde.
Yeah, most of these guys who are competing in the Endurance Cup will have switched their mentalities from the endurance mindset to the sprint mindset here. Only 30 minutes, not a lot of room for error. And Van der Velde, yeah, we're just getting information from Mike monitoring the times. Mike is monitoring the times here. Van der Velde isn't necessarily holding this group up. He just can't open up that gap. So these guys are pretty much on their limits, as we've seen, of course. We've seen Cruiser make a bit of a mistake. We've seen Macaulay make mistakes himself. So these guys are on the limit chasing Van der Velde. It's not just that Van der Velde are holding these guys up and they can't get through.
It'll be interesting to see how these cars I was going to say different manufacturers, but there's out of the 5, there are 3 Porsches involved in this battle. But it'll be interesting to see how the Lexus fares throughout the 30 minutes. I mean, we say 30 minutes is a bit of a sprint race. It is a sprint race, but the cars do degrade differently throughout the 30 minutes. So that adds another aspect to it for the drivers as well as for those chasing the different cars. On board now, Tim Trichet, he's still down to 17th place. He's unable to get past Noller. And Noller holding on to that 16th. We did say he was moving further down the field, but he has managed to maintain that 16th place. But back to the battle at hand. It's Joe Macaulay getting slightly frustrated behind Kreuzer and trying his utmost to get past and trying his utmost to maintain 5th from Beavis. Beavis all over the back of him. Severed just hanging around there and waiting for something to go wrong, but he can't hang around too long because Kieran is on his way to join this party.
Look at this shot here of the train going down in the T1. That train, oh, and the train's been spun. Contact. The train's been split up. That is Beavis hitting Macaulay, and Prendergast has hit. He's hit Macaulay. It is unfortunate. Macaulay was pretty deep himself in the T1. It looks like Beavis just followed him in, and then Prendergast just couldn't avoid him. Seen him late. Of course, there's cars in front of him, so that is a disaster for Macaulay and Prendergast.
It actually looks like Prendergast got tagged before he ran into the back of Macaulay, so he was trying to brake hard and avoid that. And unfortunately, the car behind a bit of a repercussion. The word escapes me now. But a little bit of a backup onto it, and unfortunately the car behind. A bit of a slide there from Giorgio. He's going to lose a spot now to the Aston Martin on his inside. That's Planiol looking for a way down the inside into the chicane. Is he going to get the move done? Done and dusted, but the Porsche cuts over the curb to get the cutback. He's going inside now into the left hand here. It's a little bit of a dab of the brakes. It's a hard place to make a move stick because the next one is a right-hander. Planiol, wise to that, gets it to the apex, gets in the power, and gets that Aston Martin away from Georgia. I think this battle is
Yeah.
far over. Great driving from both of them, Planiel as well, to keep enough space between the two cars that nobody makes contact. And Georgia a little bit all over the road at the moment after that turn 1 mishap. So I think a lot of moving and shaking going on through the field. But Prendergast doing great to sit in 8th place. Unfortunately, from an error that had nothing to do with him, he drops down to 12th.
Yeah, disaster for Kieran Prendergast. Great driving, defensive driving there by Planiol. Macaulay and Prendergast didn't lose. I think Macaulay lost more positions than Prendergast did. But they're together again, 11th and 12th, and Prendergast is in his slipstream. So didn't lose a massive amount of positions. Wasn't a complete disaster. 15 minutes to go. Hopefully they don't have too significant damage, even though it was a pretty significant shunt. But look how this is split up that train. It's 2 by 2 going into the arc here. We have Van der Velde and Cruiser and Severt and Beavis, the villain of T1 just a lap ago, shall we say, for the Team Rookie Monsters. But it's just so difficult, Kyle, isn't it, when you're battling and you're so close to actually stay behind without making contact, because the arrow, of course, you can get sucked in so easily.
Yeah, look, I think Matt Beavis might have been a good idea to give that spot back. He did cause all of those the incidents there, but the big winner there, and I did say earlier, Seba, just watching and waiting, and he managed to gain 2 places quite quickly there. As we look at a Porsche of I think I can't see who Dupree in that Porsche, getting a very, very sideways behind Tim Triquet, but Tim Triquet moving himself up into 13th place, so getting past Nolla and a few others as well. Prendergast now down to 18th. So Prendergast and must have made some more contact or an error and dropped all the way down to 18th now. So from 12th to 18th, a big loss for Prendergast, but a big gain for Tim Triquet, moving himself back up into 13th place, just ahead of Boris Dupree. And but Boris not giving up just yet. He's been behind Triquet for quite some time, is now looking for a way past. They head into the penultimate corner, this very long sweeping left-hander. And then after this final right-hander, there is a big move to get past. As I talk about a big move into turn 1, it's Van der Velde coming under big pressure from Kreuzer. Kreuzer trying to go around the outside. He's going to look for the cut pick, not down the inside. He's got the cutback done. But has he got a good enough run to make it into turn 2 and go around the long way around? He tries to squeeze Van der Velde over to the inside and make contact. And Cruiser, the big loser there, is going to run all the way around the outside. And Severt could get another spot here. But Kreuzer, wise to it, goes deep to the inside, maintains that position and defends it from Severt. But Severt not over yet. He's still looking for a way past. He's not going to get the big send down the the left-hander there. It's too fast. So where is he going to be able to make this move stick? He is close enough to get the work done. Just behind him, Beavis getting a 15-second penalty for that collision into turn 1.
Yeah, good decision by the steers. I think we would say Prendergast, I don't know what quite has happened. Last lap time was a 157.8. We've seen him slipstream and Joe Macaulay. I wonder, did they make contact? Not too sure. We will have to look into that later on in the race. But yeah, we see the penalties being issued. Cornacchia now has a 15-second penalty. I don't know if that was because of an incident or because of that pretty significant cut that we've seen he did there, trying to get past Planiol. But I think possibly he might have been the guy making contact with Kieran Prendergast, which caused Prendergast to actually go into Joe Macaulay. Correct me if I'm wrong. So okay, so we're getting information. Thank you very much, Michael. We're getting information about the incident that has caused Prendergast to be in 18th position, according to Michael. In the stewards, Stanchu in 21st position was pushed into Kieran Prendergast by Cornacchia, and that's what caused Prendergast to be in 18th and Stanchu to be in 21st. So of course, 15-second penalty added to Cornacchia. So race direction coming down quite swiftly and quite fairly, you would say. Oh, that was close between Bussink, a guy who's been very, very quiet so far in this race, starting to make his way through and starting to pounce on Joe Macaulay.
I always worry about mentioning this man's name in any sort of broadcast, but he is doing very well there behind the Lexus of Macaulay. The Lexus of Macaulay got a bit of damage there on the front, but so does Cornacchia. But that Porsche of Bussink is all over the back of that Lexus. He's almost leaving white and pink trails on the back bumper of that Lexus. He's running so close as they head into the chicane now. So I think that damage on the Lexus is starting to hamper him a little bit. But as I say that, he gets a great drive out of the chicane. So Macaulay is struggling to hang on to that top 10 finish after a top 6 finish was definitely on the cards for him. But there's 4 that we were looking at, Kreuzer, Sevet, Beavis. They're still hammer and tongs at it from 4th down to 6th. But this is the battle that is raging at the moment. It's Beavis versus Macaulay and Macaulay versus Connall.
Yeah, Verway, they're sitting behind them in the Audi, just staying behind, just staying about 3/10, 4/10 off Bussink, waiting for Bussink to make a pass on Macaulay and then possibly capitalising on the pair then. But here we are with Tim Troquet. Per Tim Troquet, I think I remember in Zolder he was being hounded by a group of Porsches. Now he's being hounded by some Aston Martins, Porsche, Ferrari, you name it. So mix of manufacturers hounding Per Tim Troquet. He always seems to be being hounded by multiple cars, so it'll be interesting to see how he deals with this. Of course, Tim Troquet, an experienced driver here, so hopefully he will have the experience. On board now with Joe Macaulay. Joe Macaulay has the outside line going into T2. He is possibly going around the outside. Bit of contact there with Courtney. These two guys have been involved previously. So Bussink now is trying to capitalise on Joe Macaulay, but going around the outside of T4 is going to be not going to be a move that would be expected, but he gets it done. Fantastic driving. Good driving by Joe Macaulay to not get involved in a potential accident there, but great driving for Bussink. Yeah, that was quite a brave move there.
That was a brave move from everybody. Joe Macaulay trying to go around the outside there. He couldn't get it right. Had to try to go around the outside of Bussink, but he decided against it, backed out of it. Would rather finish and then not finish at all. But as I say, to finish first you got to finish. But Macaulay's had a torrid time of it from the halfway distance of this race. So maybe just thought wise, let Bussink go. He's got an undamaged car and he can try and have a go. But back to this battle for third. It is still ranging after 30 minutes of racing, and the man still holding on is Tinker van der Velde, and he is absolutely being hounded. We're talking about Tim Troquet and the 4 cars or 5 cars or 6 cars that were hounding him. Van der Velde's only got 3 that are hounding him, but they've been at it for the last half an hour, and the man is still holding on. Down the inside, though, looking is that of Beavis. He decides against it. They all bunch up again into turn 1. Seven runs wide, and that has given the position to Beavis. But Beavis, obviously, with a 15-second penalty. So Servet just letting him go there. He's still going to maintain his 5th place. But Beavis getting the move done on circuit. On board now with Alexander Doricart down into turn 1. Tim Troquet looking for a way past. They're late on the brakes. Tim Troquet is full send mode. But Doricart closes him off for the apex and manages to maintain that position.
Yeah, Kieran Prendergast now up to 17th position. Van der Kokelt up to 18th. But hopefully Van der Kokelt, for Van der Kokelt's sake, he will tag on to the back of Kieran Prendergast and hopefully catch up to these 3 guys battling away and maybe jump them. Crucial points, of course. We've seen World Championships be decided by a single point or half a point in some cases, so all the points matter, and one of the difference between 14th and 13th could be significant in a championship battle as Tim Troquet almost catches the back of Alexander Doricart. That was too close for comfort. I mean, Kyle, we've talked about not being surprised anymore about how close this racing is, but just because we're not surprised doesn't mean our heart rate isn't about 200 BPM at the minute.
I was about to say I've taken my heart rate monitor off because it keeps beeping at me throughout the broadcast. I've had to take it off. It's the racing. Oh, how close can you get? Like, how do you do that? No, they must have park distance control on these cars. I'm sorry. That is just too close for my comfort. But this battle is still raging. Doricart and Dupree. It's been going for as long as I can remember throughout this first race, and it's still going now. And all that is allowing is Prendergast to get right onto the back of it, and hopefully he can get 3 spots done before the end of this race. But back to the 4-way battle for 3rd place, it continues with the black and gold Porsche leading it as we speak.
Yeah, if you're Chris Seaver, you wouldn't be too thrilled having a guy with a 15-second penalty in front of you. Of course, he's still racing to try and make up as much time as possible to limit the damage in terms of how far down the order he goes in the final standings. But Minotti in 7th, 1.5 behind. There he is, just coming through the shot, so he's not totally out of this, especially if these guys start battling. Van der Velde has done a phenomenal job so far of holding off, and we know the pace of Cruiser, so we know the pace that Van der Velde must be going at to fend these guys off. So it'll be interesting to see what Beavis will do. Will he jump these two guys and try and extend with only 6 minutes to go, extend as much as possible and hope that the damage is as limited as possible? But right now, looking down the order, with a 15-second time penalty, he could be outside the top 10 even, or even further. So it's going to be difficult for Beavis, but I think a warranted penalty. There's we're on board again with Tim Troquet, just with his caravan Dupree. He's just towing Dupree along here. I'm sure we can't quite see it there. I mean, Kyle, you were talking about the level of detail in this game, but they haven't added Tim Troquet's tow bar.
Yeah, they seem to have forgotten it. They have left it out of the game. Tim Troquet's tow bar not showing up there, not rendering as we watch what's going on in this. Oh, so late on the brakes, almost tagging the back of that Porsche. Somehow he gets into the apex and gets in the power. He gains 2 car lengths on the car in front and moves away 2 car lengths on the car behind, somehow in one apex. But unfortunately can't carry it through the left-hander to have a go into turn 1. I can't believe how close these guys are running. If I was Van der Velde by now, I would have torn the rearview mirror off because I got tired of seeing the same car. Look at the trainer cars behind Tim Troquet as well. This man always seems to... That car moving all the way over to the inside into turn 1. He comes back again. I think that is Van der Kokel defending his 18th position. But down the inside goes Tim Troquet on the exit of turn 1. And will he get the move down into turn 2?
Yeah, he doesn't look like he's going to get done, but hello, Dupree comes along to try and take that position, give you a little bit of a nudge, go around the outside, a bit of contact. You know how it's done here. More contact here as we go up through the T4. Who says there's boring racing at the Hungaroring? I do not believe you. This is too close for comfort. Dupree is literally rubbing against Tim Troquet's rear. This is ridiculous. Kieran Prendergast now has joined the party, so has Van der Kokel. So these two guys, big players in the championship, at the top end of the championship. Oh, Dupree! I can't believe how many times Dupree has took our breath away with how close he is to Tim Troquet. And yet there has been no contact. I hope with 4 minutes to go there is no major incident between these guys, because if not, there has been some phenomenal driving from these guys. But Prendergast, Van der Kokel joined the party, trying to make up as many positions as possible. So you're Tim Troquet. You've had this luminous blue and green. It's Tim Troquet again from the inside, almost contact there again. I can't handle this now. But we've got and now Dupree. Dupree going up the inside. He finally gets it done, doesn't he?
Prendergast is coming with as well, so Prendergast trying to get past as well. He's going to have to go the long way around into the final corner. How is this happening with the... Oh, we got the switch back. He's up against the wall. He can't quite get that, but he's got the run down to turn 1. He's going to go the long way around. They make contact down the main straight. Doesn't have the legs with that damaged car to get into turn 1, but Van der Kokel now joining the party. Is he going to go 3 abreast into turn 1? He is thinking about it. Changes his mind last minute, but it's still Troquet down the inside of Prendergast. If Prendergast can get him the power, he's got turn 2 sorted. He is still down the inside into turn 2. Tim Troquet giving him enough room on the brakes, but he moves over last minute. They make contact, and it's Prendergast contact behind. The 2 Porsches behind them have hit each other. I think that's Punzo and Stancio. So Stancio involved in more contact, but around the outside of Van der Kokel goes Troquet. I've got number 10. I've got number A.
Yeah, contact again. Oh, that is not a good look for Tim Troquet. They're having lost those 2 positions, and that is significant in the championship. Not great there. Tim Troquet, he did actually pass. He did pass Van der Kokel around the outside, exceeding track limits. He got punished for that with a drive-through penalty, and he might get punished again for that move on Kieran Prendergast. So that tight racing there unfortunately came to a sad end. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really we can say. Sometimes mistakes are made, and of course tire wear, brake fade, all a possibility, but that's unfortunate for that battle. Great for Dupree, he gets a reprieve from that battle. But now we've gone from one battle and we're on to another. We're on to more exceeding of track limits.
and Bussink getting absolutely hounded by Verwey as they head down into turn 1. Bussink goes defensive. Verwey, you're going to have to go the long way around, and Macaulay might be the big winner here as they head down into turn 1. They make contact as they squeeze each other onto the apex. It looks like I'm watching a touring car race. This is not GT3s, boys. Guys, they got an aero. Calm down, relax, breathe. You need to keep the aero together. There's only 1 minute and 30 left to go as they break hard for turn 2. The Audi trying to look for a way past on the Porsche. He's still down the inside. He's going to try and get the run down into the right-hander, but he's not going to get it done around the outside there. We know Macaulay tried it. We saw Macaulay couldn't do it, and unfortunately, neither could Verwey. But oh my, this racing is blowing my mind at the moment. At one stage, I could even see the... Oh! I can't. I could even see the individual LEDs on some of the rain lights from on board, and that's how close these guys were running. But down the inside now, Macaulay looking for a way past and Verwey. Verwey closes the door very, very late and maintains that 10th place, that 11th place ahead of Macaulay. And the fight just kind of simmers down a bit and lets us catch our breath. But Connall, on that fight we were watching earlier with Prendergast, I must definitely put the blame solely on your shoulders. I do remember you saying, I hope this doesn't end in tears.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to shut up now. You might hear no commentary in the second race as we put the fear into ourselves of actually cursing our fellow drivers. But yeah, it's a faultless race here so far for Hassini, almost 10 seconds in front of the championship leader. Speaking of the championship leader, not too disappointed he will be with second place. Of course, maximum points for himself. Technically a win, with Hassini being the reserve driver not scoring points. A further 5 seconds back is that group that Van de Velde, Cruiser, Beavis and Sievert. 1.1 now. He's lost a bit of time, so it looks like it's going to be a group of 3, but he is dangerous now if these guys keep battling him. But Van de Velde has done a phenomenal job of staying defensive while not losing time. I mean, he still set some really quick times. Cruiser is all over the back of him.
Yeah, if I was Van de Velde, I'd be having a panic attack by now after 30 minutes of maintaining these 4 drivers behind him. Beavis can't be too happy with himself with a 15-second penalty. If I look at the gaps throughout the field, he's going to drop it way down the field.
Yeah, so very disappointing for Beavis.
Yeah, so Beavis feeling like a bit of a Dupree as well with a 15-second, Stancher with a 5-second, so that's obviously for the contact we saw him make with the 2 Porsches spinning behind that battle, and then obviously Tim Jacquet, a drive-through and 15-second penalties, and then Handler with a drive-through, that's probably just for track limits. So penalties being given out throughout this race, but it will be Amir Husseini who goes across the line as a race winner, but Bianchi will take the full point haul here in this first race of our 3rd round. But there is our championship leader, and he extends his championship lead with a full points haul here at the Hungaroring. It is Bianchi giving us a bit of a light show over the line, and a great drive from Tinko van der Velde and a Cruiser to maintain that without any contact in any racing. Throughout that racing, Minotti crossing the line there in 6th place due to the penalties, Planiol in 7th. Beavis is still falling well down the field. He's currently in 8th with Conachi in 9th, but we'll wait till they cross the line to see what happens. Verwey might find himself in 8th position as he crosses the line now. 9th place, just behind Beavis. And Macaulay manages to maintain that top 10 after a shocker and a few contacts. But it is then Nola Bussink. Conachi and Dupree will still, I think Dupree will drop even further down. He's already down into 16th. But it will be Prendergast gets himself a position into 16th place on the final corner. Great driving from him and a great work. There's the move there just over the line. Moves himself up into 16th place. So great driving and great determination to stay on the track after a race full of incidents for Prendergast. It'll be interesting to see him come to the field in race 2. Connall, I feel like I've rambled on there for a bit, but I'm just too excited after that race.
Yeah, I mean, we have another one to go, Kyle. I don't know how we're going to cope. Again, I get to the stage in between races of the Sprint Cup where I'm like, how are we physically going to cope with race 2? But again, it is like a drug where I'm sitting there going, I probably shouldn't for my own health, but no, I'm going to do it. I want to see the second race. Brilliant driving throughout the field. 2 of the biggest gains there in terms of benefiting from the penalties, you would have to say Jack Noller up to 11th there, and Van de Koekhelt, we've seen him mired there 18th, 19th, at the near the closing stages of that race, up to 14th across the line. Of course, as you can see, the plus 15s on your right hand side are the penalties. 5-second penalty there as well for that was Stanchu, I believe. So a lot of penalties there. Hopefully, the guys who did get penalties will maybe take things a little bit easier as we get into the second race. But it's interesting to see now, of course, for those who are new to the Sprint Cup, race 2 involves a bit of ballast from to the front three. 20 kilos to the race winner of the last race, that was Hassini. 15 kilos to P2, that was Bianchi. And for Van de Velde, all that work, all that hard work defending P3, and his reward for race 2 is a 10 kilo ballast for him. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into Cruiser and the likes' hands in the second race. But knowing the caliber of those three guys, it shouldn't really have that much of an impact.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. We expect it to have a large impact, and we've seen it in previous races. It does impact them, but it actually just brings the racing closer rather than drop them too far down the field. I think Prendergast was a bit of a different situation because we had a wet race than a dry race. But the big thing as well is going to be the change in the time for the actual race and the drop in temperature. So whether or not these guys are going to make setup changes through a free practice and qualifying to either better their cars for the race, or they might go the wrong way and actually hamper their performance. But you were mentioning the severity of how stressful the first race is. Now we're going to go into the second. I think if we stick together and we submit danger pay together, we might just get
Yeah, possibly, but you never know how it goes. But one thing's for certain is that the Sim Grid will provide phenomenal racing. Of course, with the Sprint Cup, we have the Endurance Cup, and we have a new series. We have the More Female Racers series. A couple of the drivers in this race will be taking part as co-drivers. So yeah, very interesting to see how that will play out, Kyle.
Yeah, we had a little bit of an invitational at Brands Hatch recently. Some of those times completely demoralized me, and I'll probably never play ACC again. As a driver, I'll stick to commentating. I think it was a 1:30.8 was some of the faster times in that series. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, GT4 might I add. So yeah, ridiculous times there. So interesting to see some of these drivers. Of course, we're having a mix throughout that series of people. I was doing interviews on yesterday evening, actually, of some of the female drivers who are participating in the series. Some have a lot of experience and are very, very fast. Some have got a sim rig 4 weeks ago and have started playing SEC a week ago. So it'll be interesting to see the variety that we will have on display. But great initiative by the Sim Grid, getting more female racers involved into sim racing and SEC, and a lot of females that I was interviewing that are participating in the series was echoing those statements. You know, they wouldn't have actually participated, let alone in online lobbies, let alone league racing. Just with that stigma, you know. So SimGrid doing a great job in getting these women together, getting them involved, and getting them a real taste for league racing, and phenomenal league racing at that.
Yeah, look at the SimGrid doing great things to grow sim racing worldwide. I mean, you can just see it in the Mixer Nations here in all of our races. But also to provide that initiative. I mean, we've seen motorsports worldwide push that initiative as well. So we've seen the W Series come about, and that it really does do a lot for motorsport, especially for the amount of female drivers. A lot of people don't know about the amount of very successful female drivers involved in worldwide motorsport. So a great initiative from the SimGrid, and it'll be interesting to see that racing as well, especially with the coaches that are involved. So it's very well thought out and very well put together. And actually, involved in it is one of the top female sim racers as well. So it's a good move, and I think it's going to be a well supported series. But 2,500 odd members, I think the SimGrid is at now, and taking the majority share of sim racing on ACC. So great job from everybody at the SimGrid, and the racing just proves it. To watch that first race now at the circuit has been mind blowing. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how close some of those cars could run together. I definitely think PDC has been installed on ACC recently. I haven't got the patch myself, but I think I need to go find it. Connall, I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short 10-minute break to get our voices back and get ourselves to calm down, bring the heart rates down. And we will be back for a quali here at Hungaroring with the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. And hopefully we'll have I'm almost sure we'll have another firecracker race for you coming up shortly. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the end of free practice, the start of qualifying for Heat 2 or Race 2 here at the Hungaroring for the Pro Sprint Cup with the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. We are at the Hungaroring. In real life, it is currently raining. I know this because the Wizard of Oz, Michael Hamlin, has told me. But currently, it's dry. So we should go into a dry qualifying and possibly definitely a dry race if I look at the satellite imagery I'm provided by the local weather stations that are on the circuit at the moment. But there will be no time skips between the sessions, so all the sessions tie into each other. So there won't be any rain for this race, which is unfortunate, and it would have been nice to see the Porsches hampered by something. But unfortunately for us, they won't be hampered at all. Not a lot of people went out for free practice, so only 11 guys set time. So there's no real indication of any big changes being made for qualification. It'll be interesting to see if anybody has learned anything over the half an hour race we've just had in race 1. It was a very interesting race 1. A few naughty decisions and a few red mist issues going on throughout Heat 1. And also a few moments where I lost my breath and possibly my voice because these guys were running far too close together but for my liking. But it made for good racing and good watching. That half an hour disappeared quickly. Connall, are you in agreement with me there?
Couldn't agree more, yeah. I mean, the only thing so far, if we see the pattern of race 1, the only person that will put an end to Porsche domination is, of course, the race winner of the last race, Amir Alsini. There he is, Mad Panda Motorsport in that Mercedes. Of course, he will have to deal with 20 kilos of success ballast now in race 2, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Qualifying very vital here, as we've seen. The front row was 1 and 2 in the race, so qualifying very important here. These 15 minutes are essential. As you see, Niels van der Kock had a disaster of a race there for his standards. He is one of the top guys in this championship. He might be second in the championship if my maths don't fail me. But in saying that, 14th position. He was, almost at the very back early on in that race. In fact, he might have actually been caught up in a few incidents. But just if you haven't read the chat, I just want to reaffirm a point. Of course, Michael keeping you well informed in the chat. 5 races so far with the Sprint Cup, 5 different winners. So what I want, hopefully, from chat, we've seen the pattern almost forming. I want to know, obviously these have your picks for the win, picks for second. I want to know, who do you think is going to be rounding out the podium? We've seen how close P3, the battle for P3 was. Who do you think will be P3 in this race? That's what I want to know in the chat. But it's going to be difficult for Van der Velde, especially with 10 kilos, how close he was to 4th, 5th, 6th, and with a bit of extra balance. But it'll be interesting to see how Bianchi, will he even challenge Hosseini? Does he even need to?
Yeah, look, we know he doesn't need to because of the points haul. I mean, even if he finishes second, he still gets the full points haul. But Bianchi wasn't that far ahead in qualifying for the first race. So I don't see, in my mind, him being able to continue the pace he had with an additional 15 kilos. So we haven't seen it hamper many cars in the past in terms of qualifying and where they qualify. But I think at a circuit like Hungaroring, with the amount of braking, turning, and change of direction, this might be a circuit where we see ballast affect cars slightly more. But as has been done in the past, I would more than likely be proven wrong. I mean, we often say, no, it'll be a cool, calm, collected race, and then we get back into race 2, and neither of us have got a voice left. So, but I think Van der Velde is definitely going to be my pick for one of the guys that's going to be very, very quick here in qualifying, and himself and Cruiser have a good chance of upsetting the apple carts and putting themselves in the front of the podium here in race 2.
Definitely a lot of quick guys, and of course, drivers take a lot longer to get dialed in than some others, so everyone will be well and truly dialed in to both racing and qualifying, having done a session each earlier on. So this qualifying session might actually be quicker. Of course, track temperature is a little cooler, that'll be better for the engines, but it'll be interesting to see how these guys, because they are dialed in. This is just, they're already used to Hungaroring. They're already used to qualifying pace, so it'll be interesting to see the difference, the variation compared to qualifying 1. Track temperature 8 degrees cooler, so we may actually see some faster times here as we see Kieran Prendergast getting very wide, looking to cut the corner here and run and get that push off the last corner. Prendergast starting his first flying lap. 42.9 already. We're already into the 42s, Kyle. No surprise there. Chris Sievert, 42.9. So yeah, we seen, was it a 42.1 in qualifying 1? So very interesting to see how this dynamic plays out now.
Yeah, Sievert was found himself a little bit of pace throughout that 30-minute race. He didn't seem that full of pace in qualifying, but during the race he had some great race pace. So I think he just dialed himself in a bit into the circuits and then got going. But Monaco getting himself up there just outside of the 42s. But the Cruiser Kreuzer, the one-lap wonder, has definitely got himself sorted out and into the 42s. But Macaulay, 0.036 off the pole position time of a 42.6. Macaulay definitely doing better in an undamaged Lexus than what he was in a damaged Lexus during race 1.
Yeah, now we're on board with, of course, the main man of this Sprint Cup Championship, Christian Bianchi, the Italian, number 7 in his beautiful Porsche. He is, of course, championship leader. He had a 70-point lead going into this weekend, and he extended it even further in race 1. So Bianchi does have a little bit to play with in terms of points lead. So Bianchi, of course, one bad race won't be a total disaster, but of course, when you have that momentum, Kyle, you really do want to keep it going as long as you can.
100%, but at the moment 0.6 off his previous qualifying time, but he is carrying 15 kilos of ballast. So Amir actually doing him a favor by winning that race and taking 5 kilos off him for race 2. So, you know, Amir actually being more of a help to Bianchi than a hamper. Taking the win, not taking any points, but still taking 5 kilos off that car for him. But we saw how fast Amir was, and it'll be interesting to see if that 20 kilos affects this Mercedes-Benz and the horsepower that it does have, the top end speed it does have. But that ironing board of a wing on the back, it looks absolutely massive on that car. The Mad Panda Amir Hosseini Mercedes-Benz AMG. It'll be interesting to see what that 20 kilos does, but it does seem to be hampering Bianchi, as Sevet is currently in second place, 0.036 off pole, with Cruiser 0.039 off pole position at the moment.
Yeah, Amir Hosseini now coming across the line. Of course, race 1 winner, poleman. He is 5th over the line, 42.9 after his first flying lap. Joe Macaulay currently on pole position in that beautiful Lexus, and of course I'm a little biased because Lexus is my car of choice in ACC. 142.642. Chris Sievert only 0.03 of a second off. 1 second covering the top 18. No surprise there. And of course, speaking of 18th, we have Boris Dupree, and we've seen Boris Dupree getting very, very intimate with Tim Truquet's car in race 1. Hopefully, for these guys' sake, they don't get as close as they did get. But Boris, a time penalty in race 1, and he'll look to avoid that and go a couple of positions better in race 2.
Prendergast currently in P2 in his Ferrari, so he's found a little bit of time. But obviously Dupree and Truquet, your social distancing doesn't matter when you're in a race car, apparently. But Dupree putting himself in 5th place, so a massive jump from qualifying 1 to qualifying 2. Dupree moved himself up into 5th place, but I'm still quite blown away by Prendergast and that 2nd place. He found a lot of time between qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, and Christian Bianchi struggling down in 10th place, but I'm sure he'll find himself some time now. But 0.6 of a second is the time gain between qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, and that might have something to do with the 15 kilos of ballast he's currently carrying.
Yeah, for sure, that will have an impact no matter the caliber of driver. But I'm just, I wish sometimes the audience could hear Michael in the background, because sometimes we can hear him in our ears giggling away or making a point, or just being flabbergasted at the times these guys are doing. Look at that 1 through 4, the left hand side of your screen. I mean, I'm trying to comprehend myself how close that is. The top 4 are separated by half a tenth, less than half a tenth. It's just ridiculous, Kyle.
Bussink must.
Top
Oh,
5!
yeah.
Top
This
5!
guy, I can't handle this. He goes third place with 15 kilos of ballast, 0.030 off pole, and the top 5 are within a tenth. Actually, less than a tenth. They're within half a tenth of each other. 400s. Michael Hamlet correcting me. 400s of a second is the Beavers just makes it worse, and he goes into 6.1 off pole. Stop it now. Stop it. All of you just stop it. I quit. I can't.
Amir Hosseini is 4 tenths up, so we were laughing there about how tight it is. Amir Hosseini is about to put his foot down. He's seen the gaps from 1 through 5 and he's thought, this isn't good enough. I need to create a larger margin here. He's 4 tenths up. As we stand, we'll see will he gain or lose more time in the final sector. I mean, the thing with Amir is that he doesn't, of course I don't want to jinx him as I have done previously, but Hosseini, he looks smooth, he looks composed. He doesn't actually, he's one of these drivers who when he's out on track, he doesn't actually look quick, and then you just see him set a blistering time. So very impressive from Hosseini as he comes across the line. What will it be? He comes across the line. He is a tenth up on Joe McCauley. I mean, we're now looking, Kyle, at a tenth being a huge gap.
No, I'm sorry. I think someone forgot to add the ballast. I know it says plus 20 and plus 15. Someone forgot to add the ballast. As Michael just brings up the standings just to double check with 4 minutes left to go. There is a plus 20, a plus 15, and a plus 10 there. But honestly, it doesn't seem to be affecting anybody. And Joe McCauley is a 10th up at the moment. He's second as we stand. He crosses the line and he can't. 0.042 off pole. We currently have a second separating the top 20. Bussink must have crossed the line and goes, oh, I'm only a second off the pace. I must be up there. And all of a sudden he's in 21st place. This is absolutely... I'm blown away. Tinko van der Velde currently down in 9th place. We'll probably see him go a little bit quicker because this is why we're actually following him in the qualifying session. He's going through the final corner now. If this man goes within the same 10th for the pole, I'm going to fall off my chair. It's too much. It's too much. He crosses the line now. He's in 9th place. He stays in 9th place. Just for my health. I think he heard me and he felt bad. He backed it off there and kept it within 0.2 of a second, and it puts him down in 9th place.
Yeah, thanks Tinko there. A lot of compassion shown there for Perkyle. Planiol, of course, the race for Cat Team, the Moldovan. He is a class act. We've seen him having a great drive in the Endurance Cup at Silverstone there. Had a few issues. I think he had his wheel disconnect on him in his first run, and he had to make an emergency pit, so he went through a lot of problems in the Endurance Cup, but then still powered through. That team was a class act throughout that race. Stays in 20th, 143.5. He's 9 tenths off. I mean, he's not a million miles off. I wish for maybe viewers who are new to racing or sim racing as a whole, I wish we could find some way to visualize 9 tenths of a second separating 20 cars. I mean, the best way to do it for anyone who's new here is to just count a second in your head, and that's 20 cars going past you. So absolutely ridiculous. But these guys, phenomenal pace they're setting. I mean, Verway here, he's 24th. He is one of the few guys still yet to set a lap time. He's coming across the line now, a little wide, but hooks it back up. He goes 22nd, 43.6. I mean, all these guys are going faster than me, which is, a little demoralizing.
Now, look, I wish I could drive as fast as I could run my mouth, but apparently, according to these guys, I can't. So, Bianchi in 4th place now, carrying 15 kilos of ballast, I must add, with Lucini and Paul carrying 20. But Prendergast finding a lot of time up there in 3rd place, so that'll do well for his championship after a disaster race 1. So he'll be hoping to stay where he is, but Bianchi is probably, knowing my luck, as I talk about Prendergast doing well and up there in 3rd, Bianchi probably going to go quicker now and move himself further up the order as he crosses the line. Yes, he does. He goes pole, 0.02 0.01 of a second. Now, as far as I know, as far as I've been told by one of my driving coaches, a human eye doesn't blink faster than 0.1 of a second. And he goes 0.021 off pole position as Kreuzer moves himself within the same 10th as pole. If this is qualifying, I'm scared for race 1. For race 2. I'm scared.
And we all know how difficult that turn 1 is, so it's going to be extremely, extremely tight. I mean, we did talk earlier about us being on board with Hassini. Oh, he runs a little wide, that's going to ruin his lap time, or else he's running wide to get that perfect drive on the start, a flying lap. And this is going to be, watch out for this, 50 seconds to go, watch out for Amir Hassini. This is going to be possibly the lap of his life. But he only needs 200ths of a second. I say only, but getting it on Christian Bianchi is no mean feat. Christian Bianchi, I mean, Kyle, we were talking in race 1 about how he doesn't necessarily mind Hassini being in front of him because it doesn't play into the championship at all. But you know yourself from your experience racing. I know myself from being a championship leader and having guys in front of me not being in the championship. It doesn't matter sometimes because, you know, people will be talking, oh, if only the guy who won was in the race or in more races, he could have had a fight for the championship. And sometimes your pride gets in the way. You still want to fight for that win, even though you don't actually necessarily need to.
Look, that's definitely the big word there is pride. And I think a lot of these guys, especially outside the top 10, are going to be going, oh, I couldn't crack the top 10. I couldn't, But if you look at the qualifying and how close these guys are just to be in split 1 in this Sim Grid Championship, in any one of the championships, endurance, sprint, any of those things, to be in split 1 is an achievement in its own. If you have a look at how close, I mean, 0.5 of a second separates all the way down to 12th place. As Doricott crosses the line now, he's down in 15th. If he improves by 0.1, he goes up halfway. He goes up 7 places, up into 7th place, Doricott, and he didn't improve by all that much. But that is how close this field is. Gianni Monaco into 11th now, but this is the lap we want to see. It's his last final hurrah at qualifying. It's Amir Hassini will be crossing the line now. He's currently in 2nd place. Does he better himself? Yes, he does. He goes pole by a mountain, a huge gain of 0.1. Because if you go 0.1 faster than anybody in this field, you are absolutely flying, judging by the gaps throughout the qualifying. Prendergast down in 6th. He crossed the line now. Doesn't better himself. And unfortunately, stayed down there in that 6th place. But it's a lot better than where he finished in race 1.
I mean, we had Hassini, Bianchi, Macaulay, Kreuzer, Beavis as well. They were all within the same 10th, and then Hassini, he really stamped his authority there. Only a 10th up though, so Bianchi and Hassini not going to have it all their own way as they did in the the first race. But just interesting to note there if we looked at the timetables there, Hassini actually hadn't the fastest sector in any of the 3 sectors. Those went to Bianchi, Macaulay, and also Beavis. So Hassini, he wasn't exactly the fastest through any of the sectors, but he was the most consistent, and that was key for that pole position.
I would honestly love for someone to take those purple sectors and add them all together to come up with a theoretical of what this group could do around this track. And when have you ever seen a qualifying where pole position did not set a faster sector throughout all 3 sectors? That is absolutely insane and just shows how close this field is. There's purple sectors all over the place. It's not like one man got 2 or one got 3, or it's each person got a faster sector. So it just shows how close and the variance between all the manufacturers. But as I say that, I have a look at how many Porsche emblems I see on the grid, or it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, we were actually talking in qualifying 1 about how we don't get surprised anymore, and yet they surprise us in qualifying 2. I mean,
no, there was a drivers' meeting before this race, and they all thought, okay, what do we do to surprise the commentators? Let's all go within 0.1 for the top 5, just to really mess with them. So thanks, guys. We appreciate that. That was nice of you. If you're watching this on a stream, when have you ever seen racing this close, be it sim racing or in the real life. You don't even see this in karting over a 45-second lap. You don't see gaps this close. So it's really it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the big losers, should we say, in that qualifying session was, of course, podium man last time out, Tinko van der Velde. He is starting the race from 10th position, so he is going to have to make up from ground. One of the biggest gains was Dupree. I mean, we've seen where Dupree was in terms of the race earlier, and must have got caught up in some instance because he was a lot better than where he finished in race 1 in terms of his overall pace. But interesting to see, once again, we have a pretty dominant Porsche field, but separated, crucially, first and third, Merc, Lexus. There's a Ferrari in there. There's an Aston Martin in that top 10. So quite similar in terms of the top 10, but just in a slightly different order. But the 1 and 2 stays the same, Cini and Bianchi. So Joe McCauley now significantly warming his tires up. He qualified 3rd, Lucas Cruiser qualified 4th, Beavis 5th, Prendergast 6th, Dorcott 7th, Sievert 8th, 9th is Dupree, Van der Velde rounding out that top 10 as I mentioned. So all the top guys, all the guys that you want in that battle are indeed there in qualifying. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle T1. Of course, track temperature 22 degrees, ambient 20, track grip again optimum, so we will see some fast times once again set here, as if they wouldn't set fast times on a green track. But again, Van der Koppel 17th on the grid, so really not having a great time. And you have to say, Kyle, I mean, it's not just that the Aston Martin's struggling, it must be a driver issue, because we see, of course, Chris Sievert up there in the Aston Martin.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Aston Martin of Van der Koppel that far down in the field. It's just obviously not a circuit that he's gelling with, or maybe he hasn't got the setup quite right, or there's something key that he's missing. And you know, knowing Van der Koppel, he'll probably go and spend some more time on the circuit and try and figure it out. It'll probably be something he went, oh wow, I can't believe I missed that. But Sievert is doing a phenomenal job. I know he's in 8th place, but he's not that far off the pace. I mean, to be, I think it's 0.2 it is, or he's off pole. If you're off by 0.2, you would expect to be in at least 2nd place if you're 0.2 off pole, man. But down at 8th place doesn't sound like a great qualifying position. But we saw a lot of moving and shaking. I think it was Kreuzer who was down in 6th, moved himself up into 4th, and battled for a podium the entire race. So yes, qualifying is important, but when the field is this close together, anything can happen, especially at Hungaroring and especially on the first part of the lap.
Indeed. So, Christian Bianchi, runaway championship leader, will he challenge Amir Hosseini? Will he challenge him in the T1? That is the question. But of course, as you said in race 1, when the field is this tight, sometimes best form of defense is attack, and you just know that Christian Bianchi will be under pressure from the likes of McCauley, Cruiser, Beavis, Prendergast. All those guys will be trying to put pressure on the championship leader. So it'll be interesting to see, will Bianchi be very aggressive on Hosseini, or will he almost let Hosseini drag him away from McCauley and the Cruiser and co, and hopefully open up that gap so then they can have their own private battle if they open that gap. But we are just ready to start here at the Hungaroring.
Round 1 of this cage fight is done and dusted. We're heading into round 2. We have only 0.5 of a second separating half the field, so we expect a great race. The green lights are on. It is a race down to turn 1. Great start from Cruz. He's going to move right across the Lexus there. A little bit of a dangerous move. He opens it back up and leaves the inside open to the Lexus on the inside. They're going to go 3 abreast into turn 1, 4 abreast, 5 abreast, contact throughout there. But Kreuzer, Bianchi, and McCauley looked like they were going 3 abreast into turn 2. Oh, contact further back. That's Van der Velde has been taken out. Knoll's been hit as well. So a lot of contact further back in the field. And unfortunately, Van der Velde, a big loser there. But a big winner is Beavis up into 3rd place with, it looked like McCauley going very, very defensive there on the Porsche behind him. So Joe McCauley all over the place here in lap 1. Kreuzer not getting such a great start and dropping down to 4th place, or sitting in that 4th place. But Beavis, the big move there on the start, up into the top 3 as we're on board now with Joe McCauley. And see, as these things start settling down and they start forming a bit of a train, it'll be interesting to see the moves that will happen and how long we're going to see the freight train of cars head through this lap here at Hungaroring.
Yeah, so one of the biggest losers are Tico van der Velde. I was actually keeping an eye on van der Velde there as he progressed through the field. He, from what I could see there live, he had no fault in the incident that he got caught up in. A couple of other drivers tangled together, and he was the unfortunate recipient of a third-party shove. So disaster for the podium man in race 1. But Hassini, Bianchi 1 and 2, they had no difficulty off the line. It looked a little bit close, but Beavis has got through on Cruiser and McCauley, and he is starting to look racy now against Bianchi, as that is Minotti pitting. I believe that was for a drive-through for speeding at the start of the race, exceeding the minimum or maximum speed limit there before the lights went green. So a bit of a disaster there off the start. But crucially, Kieran Prendergast, he got caught up in that turn 1 incident. I don't know if he actually got spun. I seen him getting bumped in turn 1. He is in the pits. So that is a DNF for Kieran Prendergast. That is pretty significant for that sort of 5th, 6th, 7th in the championship. Of course, Kieran Prendergast, if I just get it up, he was actually 4th in the championship before the first race of the Hungaroring. He was on 167 points, not a million miles off Niels van der Korkeld, of course. Only 13 points off Niels van der Korkeld, so this is significant. You can see guys like Beavis, Cornacchia, of course Nico van der Velde is going to have to do a bit of work, but guys like Cornacchia and Beavis really could actually make jumps on not only Penko, who isn't here, van der Korkeld is having a disaster, but also Kieran Prendergast as well.
Yeah, a bit silly of Prendergast to call it quits so early on. We know that a last place finish will still give him 9 points. But as we look at this car of Lucas Kreuzer, once again, the Lexus of McCauley all over the back of Kreuzer. It looks like these two have got a magnet attached to their cars that just draws them together. We saw this in race 1. We're going to see a repeat of it in race 2 as the Lexus all over the back of the Porsche there of Kreuzer. Just behind them is Doricott. He's up into 6th place with Sevet behind him. We know Sevet's got a great race pace, but just behind this battle is Rotundo. We haven't seen a lot of him throughout race 1, but he's definitely going to be a name that we're going to say a lot of, well, hopefully, during race 2 as he joins onto the back of this battle.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of guys now fighting through their field that we didn't actually see much of, or at least didn't see them at the front of the field, of course. More notably, Rotundo and Stanchu. Stanchu was down in 20th position. Ponzo, of course, he was down sort of the 18th, 19th range. He was battling with, I believe it was Van Kokkel. So these two guys still glued together in the race, but we're seeing these guys a lot further up in the order this time. So maybe that turn 1 melee has caught a few guys out, and I've seen some of the guys profit from that. And I'm sure Rotundo, Stanchu, those guys will have really profited from that. Bussing, not necessarily. Noller again 15th. He, of course, ended up 11th after some great driving, great overtaking as well from Jack Noller. We know the caliber of that guy. But Tico van der Velde, as we see Bianchi getting wide, and now he's under pressure from Beavis. So Bianchi, with that extra ballast, that 15 kilogram ballast, not having it his own way here, and he's being hounded by Beavis.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, we didn't see the ballast be too much of a handicap in qualifying, but I expect to see it in the race, especially on tyre degradation. So we might see these two start slowing down and not have the pace that they had in the first race throughout the distance of 30 minutes. But Bianchi is under massive pressure at the moment from Beavis. They head through the final corner. Beavis not doing himself any favors on the exit there, running a little bit wide, and he hasn't got the toe now that he wanted down towards turn 1. But is he close enough to have a move? Because if he's not, Cruiser is definitely looking eager to get past him and have an attack at Bianchi heading down into turn 1, though. Cruiser having a little look down the inside. He's not close enough just yet as we look at a car come out of the pits to join into, hopefully, luckily not in front of this battle. But Beavis definitely looking racy behind Bianchi.
Yeah, and the problem with a group so close, such as these guys are, is that you make a mistake or you commit to a pass and then back out of it, and you have lost time, and then all of a sudden, if you're Matt Beavis, then Cruiser will be on you, McCauley will be on you, Dorcott and Sievert, when they probably catch up to this group, they'll be on you. So you really, when you make a pass, you really got to make it count. And that's what I think as Bianchi again gets it sideways, brings up a little bit tire smoke there, goes instantly defensive into the chicane. Beavis does not go for the overtake, but yeah, Bianchi very, very sideways. But yes, as I was alluding to before, Bianchi scared the living daylights out of me. Once you make a pass, you almost have to commit fully, because you know the time lost if you back out of it. So I think that is what has led to a couple of the incidents that we have seen with it. And that's just a product of
Sievert got him past Doricott and actually got a bit of a gap on him. So Sievert is probably going to join this party very, very soon, especially if Bianchi keeps making the mistakes he's making and but still managing to keep Beavis behind him. But I don't see that lasting very, very long, as Bianchi runs wide again on the exit of the penultimate corner, and there should be a run down into turn 1 here for Beavis as they head down this long main straight. If you expect Bianchi to go defensive early, he does. Beavis follows him down for the slipstream, and obviously to protect himself against Kreuzer, he's going to go the long way around. Is Kreuzer going to look for the inside line on the brakes? He does go middle, but Beavis looking for the way around the outside. Bianchi quick to close it off, but the run is still there for turn 2. He makes Beavis go the long way around as they get onto the brakes for turn 2. Beavis looking down to go around the outside. Cruiser looking for the inside, and the Lexus looking just not into the run into the back of these 3 Porsches. This is turning into one hot race with only 8 minutes done so far.
Gee, I wonder what Joe McCauley is thinking right now, having these 3 Porsches in front of him. This phenomenal race. Cruiser almost into the back of Beavis. Oh my goodness, that made my heart jump. I don't need this, guys. Please think of my health. And now Sievert, now you can see Sievert in that Aston Martin. He is well and truly making this a group of 5. These guys keep doing what they're doing. Doricott will join this group with Rotundo, Stanchu, not a million miles off either. So we could actually see a group of about 8 or 9. And we know the quality of these drivers in terms of their pace, but a couple of guys here haven't actually raced against each other. Sievert, Doricott being 2 in race 1, so getting used to the dynamics. Thankfully enough, there hasn't been any major incidents between these guys so far. But yeah, only half a second between Beavis and Bianchi, but that gap is a lot closer than it is. But it's just let Amir Hosseini just cruise away at the front, 4.4 seconds lead. He didn't get that in race 1 because Bianchi had clean air. Bianchi didn't have the 15 kilos of ballast, and also he was in the groove, whereas he seems to be a little rattled right now, and he's under pressure severely from Matt Beavis.
Talking of severely, Sievert is putting the Lexus under severe pressure at the moment. That Lexus of McCauley, every now and again, on every braking point, he does look. There we go, he does it again. So I think that's just affecting his line. He's trying to unnerve Kreuzer, but he did it for 30 minutes in the first race, and it didn't seem to do anything. So maybe that move out to the inside every now and again, just before the braking marker, is hampering more than it is helping him. But as we look at Kreuzer again, he's running into the back of him. He runs very wide and down the inside. Oh, contact between himself and McCauley. Oh. They make contact again, and poor Sievert had nowhere to go but into the side of Kreuzer, and unfortunately losing. There's the contact again. Kreuzer just turning in on McCauley, but McCauley should have been a little bit more aware of where that Porsche was. That contact was very much unnecessary, and unfortunately Sievert, the big loser there, he wasn't even involved in the confrontation between the two of them, and he's dropped himself down into 7th place. But where is Kreuzer? Down in 11th at the moment. So unfortunately that ends that battle. But it will be interesting to see if Sievert can get himself back up the field. Errol Verwey up into 10th place at the moment, just ahead of that car of Kreuzer. But Kreuzer got a big gap to catch as we look at him a little bit sideways, maybe a little bit out of rhythm because of that contact.
Oh, I feel so bad for Chris Sievert. I mean, he was doing such a great job. He had a bit of a shaky first lap. He made his way back up and started challenging for those podium positions and got caught up in that unfortunate incident. But you see these guys, you see Lucas Kreuzer, you see Joe McCauley, Beavis, guys like that. They've had incidents in either race 1 or race 2, and now they're at the sharp end in either race. And it just shows you that inconsistency over a championship. As we watch Verwey getting very sideways, Kreuzer putting pressure on him. But that inconsistency is just not helping. It just you can't win championships like that. There's only one guy throughout all these races in the Sprint Cup, who has maintained every race being at that sharp end, being battling for that podium week in, week out, race in, race out, and that is your championship leader, your runaway championship leader, Christian Bianchi.
Yeah, consistency is key in any championship as you watch. Croyzer go try and go around the outside of Errol Verwey through that left-hander. That left-hander has been part of a lot of incidents in IRL. I mean, most notably is Verstappen and Webber. I think the straw that broke the camel's back in that team. But it continues here in the sim world as we watch 3 cars or 4 cars fighting for space on this very, very tight and narrow Hungaroring. Down the inside, there goes Croyzer into the chicane. He's got the inside line. The Audi's going to try to go the long way around. He's going to run out of track. They make contact, but Croyzer able to make it round through that chicane. Oh, contact further behind is Van der Kokalt, and I think that was Punzo making contact, but Van der Kokalt making it through, and the unfortunate loser there was Bussink, falling now behind. I think that's Van der Velde. So Van der Velde making a big charge and moving himself up 2 places there and putting himself in 14th place. But now Van der Kokalt all over the back of Away as they head through to the penultimate corner. Is he going to have a sneak down the inside here? He is close enough, but he thinks better of it. Rather get the run out and the drive out through these 2 corners and have a go into turn 1. We know that Aston Martin very quick in a straight line, and that Audi does look to be carrying a little bit of damage from maybe a first lap incident, but he wasn't able to get through the last corner very well, and I think that Audi has just got enough on him as they head down towards turn 1. But this battle continues. For second place, it's Beavis on Bianchi.
Yes, and we've seen Matt Beavis off pace in terms of Bianchi's pace in race 1. And now that 15 kilos of ballast has been applied to Bianchi, Beavis is right on him. But in saying that, Hosseini hasn't really been effective. 6.4 second lead, so maybe not necessarily the ballast playing effect, but just Beavis possibly making a few setup changes in between races, or possibly getting dialed in more to this Hungaroring. So yeah, Beavis really big improver from the last race. Joe McCauley, of course, only 1.1 off. Darkoff himself is only 0.8 off McCauley, so those 2 guys not out of the woods yet for this podium battle. And of course, second and third here, Bianchi and Beavis. So Beavis is under attack for his final podium position.
Corley doing very well in that 4th place. He was part of a few unfortunate incidents in the first race. He was a part of an incident now in the second race, but it didn't affect him as much as it did that of Croyzer. A little bit of contact between the 2 of them. Stewards have obviously had a look at it, and they've deemed it to be a bit of a racing incident. So no penalties as of yet. They could still be looking at it. I could be speaking out of turn. But we talk about Hosseini getting the gap and getting the runaway. It might be less to do with the ballast and more to do with the fact that Bianchi's had to fend off Beavis for the last 15 minutes of this race.
Yeah, and I mean, 15 minutes is half of it.
Oh, he's going
around the outside. Phenomenal. Of course, if he keeps this going, he will have the inside, but Bianchi defends well. He would have had the inside into turn 2, but he does not, and he's still looking to the inside, even though Bianchi is defensive. Now he thinks better of it. Joe McCauley decides to come and play with these guys, and if you were Matt Beavis, you'd be a little concerned with the Lexus behind you. Maybe you'd be a little bit more urgent. Maybe that's why he's being so urgent in his attempts to pass Christian Bianchi, because that... Oh, as we see Van der Kokkel. No, Van der Kokkel's in the wall! And that is Van der Kokkel and Punzo getting involved. Oh, that is a disaster for Niels Van der Kokkel. He was having a better race than race 1, and he has been slammed into the wall there, and I think with the velocity of impact there, he will have front end damage. And Punzo drive through there, I believe that will probably be for track limits. I don't think the stewards will have awarded that so quickly, but what a disaster for Niels Van der Kokkel. This weekend just keeps getting worse.
So unfortunate for him. You've got to feel for him. He's not having a great weekend. It's one thing not to be on the pace, and a complete another to be involved in the incidents as well. So really struggling. But as we look at this battle between Bianchi and Beavis, is it really wise for Bianchi to be fighting the way he is, considering his current championship haul?
Okay, so we're just getting information from Michael there that Punzo has getting a drive-through that was actually from race direction. That was from the steer
Oh,
speed
he's got it done.
again, round the outside, but doesn't
Oh.
get it done. Can't get it hooked up on corner exit, but he gets the drive now and tries to go around the outside once again of Christian Bianchi. But Bianchi, wise to it once again, shows Beavis the outside. Macaulay now looks up the inside. No, don't do it, Joe. We've seen incidents there. We've seen incident a lap ago with Van de Cockhout. But we've seen with the Macaulay and Lucas Cruiser incident that Cruiser actually came across quite sharply across Macaulay's nose. Again, Beavis came across Macaulay's nose quite sharply there. So, I mean, I doubt these drivers particularly care about each other. But, I mean, for your own selfish reasons, for your own race, front end to back end generally doesn't win in a car. So I would be given a little bit more room there. But, well, what do I know? Anyway, Matt Beavis. But yes, getting on to what Michael informed us, Punzo. He's currently in 19th position. Of course, he was caught up in that incident with Van de Cockhout. He has got drive-through penalty from the stewards. That was for repeated incidents, multiple incidents with other drivers. But getting back to your question, Kyle, Christian Bianchi's fight here, it's a difficult situation to be in for Christian. It really is. I mean, if he does decide, okay, I shouldn't be battling as hard here, then he could lose 5, 6, 7 positions. But again, as you were saying, he has such a wide championship lead now that he can afford to have an off day. But that momentum that he currently has, podiums constantly, if I just go back and check his championship or his race position so far, he's only been off the podium once. That was the first race in Solder. That was a 5th place. He's since gone second, first. He's currently second now, so he was really trying to keep that podium streak going. And if you're Bianchi with 12 minutes to go, I'd say you just keep your rhythm up. Maybe not be too aggressive defensively if Beavis or Macaulay tries to find your way through, as we see this horse getting kicked up. But certainly, very difficult situation to be in for Christian Bianchi.
Yeah, it seems like he's just backing himself up into a group of a lot of cars, and that's why I posed the question, is defending that hard really necessary, especially considering your championship haul? Everybody wants to go into the last round of the championship, pretty much championship leader, and you'll probably do that if he gets another win's worth of points here again. Remember, Husini won't be taking any points away from him. But you were talking about the cars coming across each other quite hard there at turn 2. That's probably because they're trying to get the run on the car in front for the following set of corners. So a lot of drivers maybe trying to pull it back and get the power early and get the run down. And Macaulay caught out the first time like that and almost caught out the second time and almost made contact with Beavis there. But it looks like Bianchi's getting into a bit of a rhythm and able to set himself up to possibly get away now as we have a look at the battle between Bussink and is that a yes, a Nolla, and further back it's Cornaccia and our favorite Tim Triquet. He had a bit of a shocker in the first heat, making some rather poor decisions. But as we go back to the battle in the front, it's now a Bianchi. Oh, he's going for the inside. They're going to make contact. How did they stop that from happening? How did they stop that from happening? That was absolutely great awareness. And if I was Bianchi, I'd be changing my underwear right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is phenomenal stuff. I mean, it's great ab work. I think it's phenomenal ab work out commentating over these races, because I tense up every time these cars get close to each other. We've seen Beavis how close he was willing to run to other cars in race 1. Well, how close everyone was willing to run. But we're just starting to see Macaulay, Darkhot, Rotondo, Stanchu all sort of plateauing in pace behind these guys. So maybe just conserving a bit of energy, conserving a bit of tire now, and Macaulay on the attack as Beavis makes a little bit of a mistake at that chicane.
Oh, he's lost a bit of time there on Bianchi and dropped into the back of Macaulay. So what we could have been seeing a race for second, with only 9 minutes left to go, this might turn into a race for third. We've seen Bianchi, when he gets a bit of a gap, he can start running, stretching those long legs and getting himself away from this group. But with 15 kilos of ballast, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do it. Bianchi's definitely looked slightly slower than Beavis, and Beavis looked like he got the pace, but Macaulay's starting to switch it on now. It's in the latter part of this race, and maybe not because he's got the pace, but because he has to, looking at the 3 cars behind him, all looking very racy.
Yeah, and when you're pushing the pace on the guy in front, sometimes it's very easy to Macaulay a little flash the lights there. He doesn't actually have his lights on as we get to 7 o'clock in game time, but Macaulay looking to do the cutback. He's getting the drive. Beavis was almost onto the AstroTurf there, almost 4 wheels on the AstroTurf. Macaulay now looking, he himself is looking to go around the outside. Beavis is going to show him the outside door. Macaulay can't get the drive, and Beavis defends well. Now Darkot looking to go. Macaulay chops the nose of per Darkot there, the number 55. That might get the red mist down on Darkot and get him a little bit more aggressive on Macaulay, but I know it would get me a little bit more aggressive, because that is a real sign of intentions there from Joe Macaulay. He is going to defend with absolutely everything he has to keep that 4th position and to keep himself in that fight for that final podium spot.
Yeah, I think Macaulay was more catching a slide there than trying to cut the nose off it. It definitely looked like the way that car snapped across. He maybe just got on the power a little bit. Oh, there's another slide there from the Lexus, but he gets a great exit out of that right-hander. But the same for Beavis, and this fight continues with 7 minutes left to go. How quick do these races disappear on us?
It's ridiculous. I mean, 30 minutes. We thought we had notes prepared and everything, didn't we, for 3 hours? And we ended up using none of them because we were just focused on the action. Same here. I mean, 30 minutes, we have no filler here because it's just all action throughout these 30 minutes. So if you're enjoying these videos, if you're enjoying this broadcast, please do leave a like for those who are watching. It would be much appreciated.
Stancio and Rotundo getting into it, hammering tongs as they head down towards turn 1. A couple of mistakes from both drivers there towards there, very close to that inside wall. A lot of flashing there from Stancio. He's not happy with the squeeze that Rotundo put on him, but he's still flashing, so obviously not happy at all with the defensive driving there from Rotundo, and that has lost him the gap on this group fighting for 3rd place. But just behind him, Severt has found a little bit of pace in the later part of this race, and looks like he's going to come and join this party and this dice for 3rd place.
As always, new developments happen. We think it's going to be a 3-man battle for the final podium position, and then these guys just keep catching. But Chris Severt, of course, we've seen him getting involved, being a passenger in that incident there, caught up with the cruiser incident. Very unfortunate for Chris Severt, but still 8th position. A very solid damage limitation run, shall we say, and he will make big strides, of course, in the championship. If you're Christian Penko watching this, hello Christian, if you're indeed watching, Cesar Penko, you might not be too, of course, Bianchi is their second again, will be 1st overall in terms of points. But if you're thinking about Niels van der Kokhelt, Kieran Prendergast, Cornacchia, guys like that, not featuring too high up. Of course, van der Kokhelt 14th, Cornacchia 15th, and Prendergast out of the race. Might actually be a good day at the office for Penko, even though he's not here.
Well, I still think any points are better than no points. And Penko, unfortunately, unable to make it through to due to prior commitments, and fortunately, he did let us know. A few other drivers didn't, but always nice just to get their heads up and say, look, guys, I can't make it tonight to join this intense racing. And anybody unable to join, I'm sure, is kicking themselves, and I wouldn't see why you choose to miss such close and in-depth racing as we get here in the sim grid. But with 5 minutes left to go, it looks like this battle's kind of simmered down a bit. As I say that, I'm sure everybody will start proving me wrong, but it has seemed to calm down slightly, with Bianchi getting a little bit of a gap on Beavis. It was up to a second, it's now down to 0.8, so it possibly isn't all over just yet, but it has simmered down slightly.
Yeah, and everyone's to settle down. I mean, I think for the good of their health, they will need to settle down a little bit. But still, you've got Macaulay there. You've got Darkot, Rotundo a little bit off these guys, but Beavis is in that final podium spot. And Darkot and Macaulay want it bad. that'll be if, of course, our guy in the Lexus, Macaulay, does indeed get onto the podium. I'm just looking down the order through. That'll be his first podium of the season. He missed out Mazzano 6th and 17th at Zolder. But of course, with Hosseini being a reserve driver, not featuring in points, we actually have Macaulay technically on the podium in terms of championship points. So he will be classified as the number 3 in championship position. So Doricott now, he will be looking to get another podium. But very, very difficult situation here for these guys. Do you defend, do you attack? Well, I think Kyle put it best in race 1. Best form of defense is offense.
Yeah, saying that, the Beavers had to turn in quite early into turn 1 to maintain that position on the Lexus. The Lexus does, though, off the final corner, just doesn't seem to have the drive the Porsche does. So any lunge he makes into turn 1 is a bit of a full send lunge because he's just slightly off. He only starts catching towards the end, but now he is very, very close to the back. Oh, he looked at the inside there. Beavers slightly wise to it, duck it onto the apex early, and the Lexus unable to get the move done. He's lost a bit of drive, and now Doricott all over him. So I said this battle was simmering down. Clearly I lied.
Well, it's always the way. I mean, I swear these sim grid drivers are out to make us look like fools, Kyle, because everything we predict and we say doesn't turn out quite correct. But Beavis now under immense pressure. And we've seen almost the other way around with Beavis putting the pressure on the Cruiser in race 1. But now Beavis is the chasee, so it'll be interesting to see how he deals with that pressure.
Look, we've got to mention Van der Velde quickly. I mean, a great storm of a drive to move himself back up into 11th place from very much the back of the grid. And he is just behind Kreuzer at the moment. The gap was 1.4 the last time I looked. It's down to a second. So he is absolutely flying, Van der Velde. Maybe a bit of the race red mist and a bit of the anger helping with his times. But with only 2 minutes left to go, the battles rage on throughout this field. And Severed, who I thought was catching quite quickly, has seemed to have backed off slightly, backed the pace off a bit, and isn't catching as fast as I thought he was going to. As we look back to this battle, it's Van der Koekout. Almost contact again with Konatia, but Van der Koekout just holding him off there, off the final turn here at the Hungaroring. With only 1:40 left to go, this race is all but over.
Yeah, Van der Koekout and Konatia, if you were thrown in, if you watched Zolder and Mazzano, and then you all of a sudden got teleported to this Thursday watching Van der Koekout and Konatia battling, you would expect them to be battling for maybe the podium. So it'll be a shock to your system to see them at 14th or 15th if you've been following this series. But that just shows you anything can really happen in this series. You've seen the T1 incident. You've seen the way these guys battle, and you've seen how close it is in qualifying. I mean, if you're half a second off, you're in P10. Tico van der Velde learned the hard way. So Tico, brilliant drive from him. He's only half a second off Lucas Cruiser, of course. Cruiser, you would expect, actually has damage because he's 7.6 off Planiol. So Cruiser probably limping around here now, and Van der Velde should get him and maybe get himself into the top 10. He's 3/10 off now, so he should get that done. Of course, thank you very much, Michael. We are on board with these two guys now. Lucas Cruiser, it looks like he's struggling. He's having a hard time. Of course, he was caught up in that incident, but Tico van der Velde running a bit wide. They're getting a bit over eager as we are getting close to the final lap of this race.
So Amir on the final lap there, as you were saying, it's honestly, I think Formula One needs to look at a new broadcaster, and Michael Hamlet, you need to get your CV in there. Always on point to get us the right action for the racing. But at the moment, it's Amir Husini as we look back to Walter Rotundu and that of Stancio. This battle rages on as they exit turn 2 into turn 3 now. They're running very, very close together. I think it's only 0.4 of a second or 0.3 of a second separates these two. With only a lap left to go, we can expect possibly a little bit of a late lunge on from these two as they head through the right-hander back with the battle for Lucas Kreuzer and Van der Velde. The last of the top 10 positions. Van der Velde trying to reimburse himself after that incident in lap 1. And and then Niels van der Kolk holding off Cornacchia through that of the final lap. But Amir Husseini, the race winner from race 1, 20 kilograms of ballast, as these two getting very hairy into a turn, I think that's turn 3 or turn 4. Cornacchia all over the inside curb. He's lost the drive, and Tim Tricane might be looking down the inside into the chicane. Not quite close enough just yet. With only a few more corners to go, we could expect to see a little bit of interesting driving as Amir Husseini with 20 kilograms of ballast, a handicap we might call it. He doesn't seem handicapped at all as he crossed the line in first place, but Christian Bianchi will take the points for first. In second place because of the reserve drive with Beavis holding off Macaulay for fourth, just ahead of Alexandra Doricott, Rotundo in 8th, Estancio in 7th. A great drive for Server to recover to 8th. Planiol there in 9th. Kreuzer hangs on to 10th place, just ahead of Van der Velde. Great drive from Van der Velde to recover. And it looks like Van der Kolk will hold off Cornacchia for 14th. Actually, Cornacchia has gone missing, so Van der Kolk will hold off Tricane for 14th. And it looks like Cornacchia will take 16th. So unfortunately, Cornacchia having a little bit of an incident there with either Tricane or that of Van der Kolk, and he'll cross the line in 16th place, just ahead of Bussink. Punzo down in 18th and 19th with Handler, with Minotti quite a distance behind 20th. What a race. Movement and shaking and driving and running close together and caravans, and wow. How is that for another pro sprint cup race here with the Simgrid?
Yeah, I mean, another phenomenal day's racing, 2 phenomenal races. Christian Bianchi, of course, the big winner today. Had Penko second in the championship, as we see Bianchi.
What a catch!
Yeah,
drifting all the way through the circuit.
Okay, we're getting information. Cornacchia himself wasn't caught up with either Niels van der Kolk or Tim Tricane. He just made a mistake on his own, which is very, very easy to do on the last lap when you're on your absolute limits and you're on the absolute car limits too. Is Bianchi's doing some Drift World Series here.
Formula Drift. Don't go to the pits. Keep going. We want to see more of it. Where are you going? How brilliant is that?
You can tell how happy
much,
he is. Yeah, you can tell how thrilled he is. I mean, it was a 70-point championship lead as we came into this weekend. It'll be significantly more as we come out of the Hungaroring. So, Christian Bianchi, you can tell. I don't even need to explain to you. He is a happy, happy boy.
Absolutely brilliant. It's the absolute points haul he's managed to put together here at the Hungaroring. Great racing from him, but we can't take anything away from Husseini there in the front, pulling a bit of a Houdini and disappearing on the rest of the field. He drove away in the first race, drove away in the second with 20 kilograms of ballast. So a great performance from him as a reserve driver, and it was great racing all the way through.
Yeah, as always with the Simgrid, of course. We are back once again for the Sprint Cup to test me and Kyle's overall health. We are back with the Sprint Cup 2 weeks' time. We're at the beautiful Brands Hatch, a track that I just absolutely adore. That is August 27th, of course, 2 Thursdays from today. And then September 10th for the finale. A further 2 weeks from Brands Hatch, we are at Zandvoort for the championship finale. I'm sure there will be a lot of championship positions to be decided in those 2 races at Zandvoort. So a tricky track, 2 tricky tracks for these guys to deal with in the 2 final 4 races of the season. We have Christian Bianchi, I believe, ready to interview the current championship leader. So it'll be interesting to get a word with him.
Christian, welcome to the commentary channel, and welcome to your interview after a dominant display here at Hungaroring. Well done. Good driving there.
Thank you, guys. It's a very difficult race because in race 2 I have 15 kilograms of ballast, but it's not the best to manage in this track because I was really I have a really difficult braking zone because I have to brake really early than before, and also my setup is not so great tonight.
Look, you're complaining about your setup and you weren't quite thereabouts, but definitely a dominant display from you to run in second place there behind us. We can't take anything away from you there. I still think the most entertaining and brilliant display from you was on your cooldown lap, showing us some Formula drift there and putting it sideways. It was actually very entertaining to watch. I must give you hats off for that. So great drive from you, but dominant display throughout the series, very consistent. Great results throughout every round, and it looks like you might have a bit of a walk here at the championship with only one more round left to go.
Yeah, for the championship this round was great because all the other guys that could take my position in the championships are not in front of me. So yeah, this was really good, and yeah, next round. I need to manage and to take some points. So yeah.
Christian, that was actually. Sorry,
okay.
go on. That was actually going to be my next question. Did going into these two races, of course, you had a 70-point lead going into this race. Well, these two races at the Hungaroring. Did the championship play at all on your mind? Did you? Well, I mean, we've seen how quick you are. You obviously weren't holding back anything, but how do you feel the management of your championship will play on your mind going into Brands Hatch and Zandvoort?
Yeah, for sure. Also in this race because my target is the championship. So I think that continue to manage these advantages in the championship, and yeah, I want to win the championship. It's not important win the race, but because it's easy that in the race you can have a connection or something that is happening that you can manage. So yeah, I need to bring at home most points that I can.
Yeah, and we've seen that from you, Chris, and of course, when all your other competitors have faltered in at least one race, you have stayed very, very consistent. Of course, you're now running a 5-podium streak, so you're obviously the man to beat as we head into Brands Hatch. Christian, thank you very much for your time. You're getting a lot of love in chat from everyone, so everyone's saying bravo for your performances. Thank you for your time, Christian. We look forward to seeing you once again, Brands Hatch.
Thank you. Bye. See you.
Yeah, of course, Christian. Very, I think, pretty perfect mentality he has in terms of managing the championship, Cal.
Yeah, look, he also brings a different aspect to that we never really think of. Is we are dealing with IT, so we could have some connection issues or internet problems or power issues. There's a lot that goes into it just outside of what we would expect in terms of the racing as well. So having a great attitude towards it and scoring as many points as he can should he have any issues like that. But definitely the most consistent driver throughout the field. But not to take away from a lot of the other drivers in the sim grid and in this split one. Like I said, just to be in split one is a achievement in itself, and these drivers proved it to us in qualifying, running the entire field within 2 seconds of each other, or even more ridiculous, the top 5 between half a second. So this racing is still absolutely mind-blowing to see how close they can run together, to see how close they can run onto each other. You expect people to give a bit more space for lag and different issues as well, but these guys drive these cars like they're doing it in the real life.
Yeah, you've likened it to go-karting a couple of times. They really do drive like that sometimes. A lot of bumping that you see in side-by-side action, but you wouldn't expect with the aero on these cars to have such bumping action, but we do see it. But it makes great entertainment for us, as I hope everyone watched and enjoyed. Of course, it seems from the chat that everyone did enjoy. A lot of support, of course, for both Amir and Christian Bianchi. Of course, with their exquisite drives, it was a bit unfair for Per Amir. He didn't really get shown much in the Mad Panda motorsport, but I suppose he'd rather have it that way because that shows that he's just clearing off and have a relatively easy race on his own.
Well, if you didn't want to get a very little exposure, you should have slowed it down and dropped behind Bianchi and maybe given us a bit of a race towards the end there. But no, that was a dominant display from him to go and do that in his first event with us here on the Sprint Cup and obviously as a reserve driver. But it makes me feel a little bit despondent watching it. I can barely keep the Porsche in a straight line, and there's Christian showing us how it can be a Formula Drift car as well. So I'm a little bit despondent of my own driving talent in ACC, but it's like watching you get a bit of a hero complex watching these drivers in the sim grid and in Split 1. But I think I'm excited for next week, and I'm looking forward to seeing some more action like this.
Yeah, I think Christian is actually drifting around the Hungaroring quicker than I can actually hot lap around the Hungaroring, which is even more demoralizing. But yes, of course, Brands Hatch 2 weeks' time, August 27th, and then Zandvoort September 10th. But in terms of next week in the Sim Grid, we have the More Female Racers, the inaugural race with the More Female Racers series at the Nürburgring. That is on Wednesday the 19th. That starts at the usual 7:30 time BST. But then the big one, the start of the Sim Grid World Cup at Suzuka, Saturday, the 10 hour of Suzuka. That is Saturday the 22nd. Jot that date down on your calendars, folks. That is going to be a big one. The times are ridiculous in pre-qualifying. That is okay, and just getting word from Michael Hamlet that September's events will be announced Saturdays. This coming Saturday. So for anyone new to the SimGrid or looking potentially about joining the SimGrid, get registered, and then on Saturday, September's events will be announced. And of course, you can have multiple splits in terms of Sprint Cup, Endurance Cup. World Cup, of course, is exclusive to the top guys in the SimGrid, but you can get involved in all the races. We not only have Sprint Cup, Endurance Cup, the More Female Racers, we have many one-off races here at the SimGrid. GT4 Madness, GT4 Launch Night events, GT3 at Bathurst, etc. So come along if you want to enjoy these races and get involved, and please do. But thank you very much, Kyle. Thank you very much, Michael, in production, and thank you very much to those who have joined us in the chat and watching the stream itself. We'll be with you again, of course, Wednesday, for the More Female Racers, the inaugural race. And so, see you then, guys, on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think that brings to a close a great coverage of round 3 of the Pro Sprint Cup series. And as always, joined by Connall, Courtney. Absolute wonderful race for the two of us to spectate. And don't forget, the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy will be bringing you more and more content as well as more events. So if you want to get involved, go check out thesimgrid.com. And don't forget, if you are a GT4 driver and a fan of the BMW, the setup is available now on Coach Dave Academy, and soon to be released will be the Mercedes-Benz GT4 as well. Guys, have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week.